die. But on the 3rd of September, I'm going to start up a new peace camp at Waddington, where the drones are going to be based. Using the 3rd of September because that's the anniversary of the Second World War. And when you look at these drones, these unmanned terror strike weapons, to me they're exactly the same as the V1 and V2 rockets. They're a stealth killer. Now that last scene that you showed resembled my grandfather's house when I was 6, because one of the last attacks from the V2 rockets that fell in Essex, where I live, cut my grandmother's house in half. So ever since I was 6 years of age, I've been aware of these things. And what worries me is that we're talking about these in the terms of modern technological, high sort of computerized terms, which most people understand now. But what they don't understand is sometimes you've got to go back to the beginning to find out where you are now. And none of this would have come about in the way it has if Werner von Braun and his brother hadn't designed those initial killer drones, because that's what they were, the V1 and V2 rockets. Yeah. And the term I want to use is Nazi. These weapons are Nazi stealth killing weapons. And we should use those terms for people to really understand, because all the high tech is great for people who are really up to speed with that, which a hell of a lot of people aren't. But they can understand Nazi behavior. And America, tragically, the higher echelons of America are following Nazi prototypes. So you go back to the beginning, that's where it started, and here's where it's ending up, where you've got robot fighting robots. It's Von Braun's dream. We should actually make more use of where these weapons started out in the 1940s. Not, the highest sophisticated things we're dealing with now. There's nothing sophisticated about killing people by stealth. It's criminal behavior, it's Nazi behavior. And I, for one, would be very grateful if people could sort of slide into that terminology so people really understand what we're dealing with. You may not agree, but I honestly think it's something that would help people over all sorts of stumbling blocks. And it perhaps clear Obama's mind when he's actually confronted with the fact that he's, supporting a Nazi weapon. Who knows? It just means sanity again. I hope. Good luck.
Thank you. Well, Helen, you're very well aware of the Project Paperclip, in which the Nazis that were working on V1 and V2 were brought to the United States to give us all rocket lessons. And you were very right that the V1 buzz bomb in particular was the great-great-grandparent of the drone. And I think that is correct. I think that you not only need to use that language, but you need to make sure people understand that this is not a clean death, if there is any such thing as a clean death. It is a very unforgiving type of weapon technology, just as much as a bomb dropped from an airplane. And I think that you using that kind of language is a very good idea. And I wonder sometimes if President Obama knows about Project Paperclip and about all the people that were in the Nazi development program brought to the United States. It's a shameful part of our history.
You had a question?
Hi. I just could you elaborate a bit on exactly what the satellites are controlled from S-range and from the Swedish bases, and what do those satellites do? You mentioned it kind of briefly, but I was unaware of that. So exactly what's the connection to military devices, Swedish or European or US or?
The problem is we don't know in the case of S-range, because there are often many range testing facilities like in the Bahama Islands near the U.S. and spaceports like in New Mexico, where they begin supposedly controlling only commercial satellites, but then they have another secret mission. S-range is acknowledged to be involved in both aircraft and drone tests, It is acknowledged to be in space ground stations for commercial satellites, but we are almost certain that it is also a download station for the spy satellites run by NSA and NRO. In the case of Vardo and Fauska, we know for a fact that these are facilities managed by the intelligence community, and they do as much looking up into space as they do downloads. But the important thing to remember is you have many ground stations that serve to look up, to be monitors of orbital space, but you also need many stations that download the data from military satellites. And often the United States will regularly lie about facilities. There is a facility in Western Australia near Perth that the United States has continuously lied about, and it has come out that it is an NSA and NRO download facility, and the United States has lied even in UN testimony about this. And we expect that NATO and the U.S. will lie consistently about S-range. So I think we have to assume that there is a military download purpose for S-range that has not been fully admitted to.
Can I just follow up? Do we know if the personnel there is strictly Swedish or also foreigners, but supposedly commercial, or even, presumably actually U.S. military?
It is international civilian contractor employees, but that doesn't mean very much these days because, it used to be, for example, the intelligence group, the NSA in the United States, always used military personnel at its listening posts. And that is not the case anymore because of the United States wants to outsource everything. You hear the phrase outsource to private industry. And now, for example, at Buckley Field in Colorado, near where I live, there is a small base area that is military people, but then all of the intelligence processing is done in a much, much larger area that is all under the direct control of Raytheon and Harris, and these are all civilian people, and they are people from around the world. They are not necessarily U.S. employees. So my guess is that NEAT, S-range, and particularly, Vardo and Fauska, may be having many, many civilian employees that are actually intelligence agents. How you always go about proving that is a very tough subject.
More questions?
Janet?
Excuse me? But did I understand you right? There's no military space testing at S-range. If there's any what's the term, space military activities at S-range, it would be downloading data.
Right. There is probably some sounding rocket work that the military takes advantage of, but a lot of military flight activity would go to NEAT. And so consequently, we can assume that the vast majority of work at S-range from a flight test perspective would be commercial. The thing you have to be careful of is how much secret activity gets pushed in under the fence. So.
Okay.
Now, I will have to leave a little bit early today because I have a peace conference I have to go to myself, but if anyone has a last question or something, I would be happy to take it. But if we are all done, I can sign off, so whichever.
Yeah, one more question?
Loring, one favour I'd like to ask you, and I would really ask you if you could put out information in the global network where that word Nazi actually features in some of the articles.
I think that would be a very good idea. Bruce has already done some stuff about the Nazi history of paperclip, and if we combine that, if I can work with Bruce and Dave Webb and others to kind of give that kind of historical perspective and show how this is an upgraded Nazi weapon, I think that would be very useful, Helen, and I'll suggest that to them that we try to put that kind of thing up, yet this summer perhaps.
Okay.
Great. Well, I want to thank everyone for your interest today, and